Oh my gosh, it is the Star Wars Battlefront beta. I am so excited. And it's funny for me to even say that because I didn't even know that this was happening today until somebody texted me. Not somebody, but like a friend. Like a friend texted me and said, Heather, Battlefront beta. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to play because I love Star Wars. In the same way that I love Skies of Arcadia for being so broad, Star Wars started that with me. The notion of these large operatic romantic stories of good versus evil that have interesting morals in them, but also just sort of cool settings and stuff too. Star Wars has always been something I've enjoyed ever since I was very, very young. This is Walker Salt. It is not a match I'm going to do really great in, as evidenced by that first exchange, but I get to show off a lot of the different features of the gameplay. So I have no problem if I don't do particularly great. Walker Assault, in this case, as far as I know, it's just the Battle of Hoth, and the Rebels need to destroy the AT-AT walkers, and the Imperials need to protect them. It's like a giant escort mission. In order to destroy the walkers, the Rebels need to take over 2 uplinks to call in Y-Wings that will bomb the walkers and then also leave them sort of exposed to more fire. One thing I don't like about this game mode is that, insofar as I can tell, the Empire has a huge advantage. I've yet to play a version of this game mode, or a match of this game mode, rather, where the Rebels have won. The Rebels have always put up a good fight, but they haven't stopped the walkers, and that's what you need to do in order to win the match. And I've played, I don't know, maybe about a dozen or so of these, and the Rebels just haven't done it, so there's something that needs to be done here, whether it's just changing the damage that the Y-Wing bombers do, or somehow making it so that the Rebels have a little bit more way to push back against the Imperials in this mode. Thankfully it's a beta, so things are subject to heavy change, and we'll see how that goes. There's Darth Vader. Oh my gosh, it's Darth freaking Vader. So hero characters are back in this, and one thing that I have enjoyed about them is that they feel a lot more balanced than their counterparts in a game like Battlefront 2. They still can do a lot of damage on the battlefield, do not get me wrong, but they feel approachable. I can fire at them. You'll see I'm going to encounter Luke Skywalker later on, and even though he'll deflect a lot of my blaster shots, I will still be doing damage. So if you have a group of stormtroopers or rebel soldiers who are ganging up against the hero or the villain character, then you're able to shut them down, not immediately, but you'll still be able to do okay. They don't feel like an unfair advantage the same way they did in past titles. They feel a little bit more balanced, which is really nice. So here, just a ton of things happen. There are power-ups that are lying on the battlefield all the time, so I toss like this big thermal grenade, and then I put up an energy shield, and I sort of sneak around here and shoot this person. And then I pull out a cycler rifle, which is one of the things I put in my loadout, and I'm going to get a nice headshot off this person trying to snipe me. I just get 1 shot, 1 kill. It's really nice. I like and dislike the fact that the default blaster rifles that people have can shoot from far away across the battlefield. Engagements can be really wide, but there's something about that I also don't like. I haven't got a good grasp on it. You saw in that entire stretch of action, somebody called in an orbital strike on our position. I moved out of the range of the orbital strike, accidentally picked up a power-up that let me fly as a TIE fighter, and now I'm just flying above the battlefield against all of these A-Wings. There's actually, I think there's 3 of them in the sky right now. And flying in this game feels okay. Talk about game feel and things like that is always very odd, right? Here it's more something along the lines of, imagine if you look at the reticule, imagine that there's a a line that is drawn from the reticule to the ship, and as I move the reticule, the ship is sort of being tugged like it's on string. That's sort of the feeling it has, right? So that makes it a little floatier, as opposed to something tighter, which I would probably prefer. But also I acknowledge that Maybe if I play it in first-person mode, it'll change, and I also acknowledge that there might be some settings that I can alter that will maybe, change the way that that's sort of handled. Here I get another shield, and I can just sort of stare down enemies. They just fire and fire at me. I don't know if you can fire out. I test, and it turns out you can't fire out, which is fine. And so you'll see I try to snipe across the battlefield. I get someone, and you can see that exchanges can go pretty far in distance, and I don't like that in the sense that this game, insofar as I can tell, doesn't have classes. Even though I'm carrying a sniper rifle and sniping people, I'm not like a scout class or a sniper class. I chose a loadout where I have these cards that I select and that I can purchase using credits that I get after battles, and I sort of put them in my deck. You can see that little spot in the lower right hand corner, and I can sort of preload my character build there with sort of like boosters that, like, maybe one helps me with accuracy, but maybe one is actually just a weapon or things like that. It's okay, but I feel like having explicit classes is something that benefits the Battlefront series in a lot of ways. Having, like Bothan infiltrators, or like, what are they, dark troopers or whatever, that had the jetpacks, like, that's like its own thing now, is like getting the jetpack, like that's just an add-on that you can have for your character, as opposed to having a special class that does it, which allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of finding a setup that works for you, but also makes for a messier metagame, or at least I feel that it will. So, like, for instance, I picked up a rocket launcher. I'm not a heavy weapons class, I just picked up a rocket launcher. That's okay. There's not a lot for me to shoot at with the rocket launcher. With the Rebels, there's plenty to shoot at with the rocket launchers, because there's chicken walkers and ATs and all sorts of stuff. Here, I just sort of have to choose spaces where I think enemies are going to congregate and just fire a rocket and hope for the best. I keep on hoping somebody's going to be in one of those gun emplacements, and later on somebody will be in the gun emplacement, and I'll damage them a different way. So here I'm just going to look. I see some enemies on the horizon. I fire. I know that I did some damage, but I didn't kill them, which is kind of a bummer, but whatever. By now, you're looking at this, and if you've made it this far, you sort of understand that this is Star Wars by way of Battlefield. And there's Luke, right? Like, look at that. I'm firing at him. He's deflecting. And, like, somebody else gets me from behind. But it's still like, oh, my gosh, Luke Skywalker. But if I had a team there, I'd be okay. And I'm going to try and snipe here just for a second. But I don't think I make the shot. But it's like, that's another thing. It's like, Luke can't stop me if I'm sniping him from halfway across the battlefield. Or if I have this position up here with this gun. So it's like, I'm going to lay down fire down on those trenches. So there's always something like really happening, and I really enjoy that. It's happening on a grander scale and to a degree that I find more interesting than what's happening in the Battlefield series. Battlefield hasn't really been good since Bad Company 2, and I could make a whole video about why Bad Company 2 is good and why Battlefield 3 and then Battlefield 4 don't work. I'm not going to make that video, but there are sort of reasons I think that those are the case. Like here, I can take out my cycler, and I fire, and it takes out a gun emplacement, so it's like, that's not just a sniper rifle, it can help me against enemy emplacements. I used it as a rebel, I shot it at an AT-ST, the chicken walker, and I destroyed it, which was great. So, like, you have a lot of utility on the battlefield. Things are fairly streamlined in this game. There's no ammo. You just sort of have your loadout and you go from there. I enjoy that. I think the different loadout things, once I have a chance to experiment, maybe I won't feel as off-put by them. But I do like the fact that it takes some of the core things from the Battlefield series, sort of the large-scale battles, and the general controls, which are contrary to, and then again I take out the cycler and I blow up a gun emplacement and get two guys. In this case, the fundamentals of the Battlefield series work very well for this, because this is a game that is sort of trying to be about these grand epic battle fields, right? Hoth or Endor or whatever. And I get blown up, whatever. But I think it works for this game in this setting particular. And I think it works in a way that's something a little tighter and more arcadey than Call of Duty wouldn't. So in general, though, man, I love this, and I'm at the end of the match, and I rambled so much. It's good. It's out right now. The beta's out. Try playing it. Bye.